Grants, I'm the Workforce Development Program Coordinator. I oversee Clinton, Washington, St. Clair, Madison, Monroe County. With me is Freddie Buckingham, Director of Madison County Employment Training. We oversee Bond, Calhoun, Jersey, and Madison counties. So in our cooperative, we like to do these roundtables to bring everybody together to talk about cross-sector workforce issues. And so today, our focus is helping individuals in our justice, touch, reentry, whatever the current verbiage is, to find sustainable, credible employment. We don't just want to find them jobs, we want to give them something they want to do every single day that'll keep them off the path of back to where they were in the first place, to be productive, to help solve the workforce shortage that we know we have. People ask us now, where's the workforce? There's not really one. If you have a skill and you want a job, you got one. So we have to grow our workforce. And in doing that, we have to look at non-traditional barrier pools that have always been there, that have been underutilized and now have the opportunity. And so that's what we're here today to talk about and try to wrap ourselves around.
Welcome everybody, and I think we're a couple minutes behind, so I would say let's move forward with the program. I think you want to hear from the experts and not myself. So welcome everybody. Thank you for all being here.
All right, so our first presenter is Lisa Cohn, Program Manager at St. Louis University Transformative Workforce Academy. So Lisa, if you'll come up and take over.
Thank you. All right. So I believe we have some slides. Are those going to be up here? Okay. Hopefully.
We've got them on there, but
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, I'll give you guys just a little bit of background about me and the organization that I work with. So as I said, my name is Lisa Cohn. I manage a program called Transformative Workforce Academy, which is actually based out of St. Louis University. We were started by the university's Office of Mission and Identity. And our mission is to help people who are justice involved, which means impacted by the justice system in some way, whether they are coming out of prison or jail or just have an arrest or probation on their record. So we work with people who are justice involved to help them find employment. So really kind of at the nexus of why we're here today. And so what that looks like is we work directly with a lot of community organizations as well as federal and state probation and parole, and to connect them with local employers in the area. So we work with over 100 employers in the St. Louis metro area to basically help cultivate those relationships, connect them with the clients that we're working with, and also to train those employers to help them be able to learn best practices in hiring this population and supporting them on the job so that you're not just hiring them, but also keeping them long-term and hopefully helping them thrive. So that's really what we're hoping to do here today. So we give this training that I'm about to do to a variety of employers. It is going to be an abridged version of the training. So usually the training that we give to most employers has 3 sections. It has why you should hire this population. It has how to go about doing that, talking about best practices and recruiting and sourcing and interviewing. And then we talk about how to support them on the job. Given the time frame we have today, we're only going to do those first 2 sections. And we believe the third is very important. So I do encourage anyone who hears this presentation and is inspired to start hiring second chance to let me know, and we can go to your organization and give this training to your colleagues and do the full 3 part, because we really do believe their attention and support piece is important. But just to kind of dip our toes in the water today, we're going to go over those first 2 sections, talking about why this section of the workforce really is valuable and can make a difference for your business. And then also we're going to talk about how to best support them on, or sorry, not how to best support them on, but how to recruit them, how to source them, how to determine then, which candidates might be the best fit for you, and how to develop a policy within your company about, who we should be hiring and how that process looks. So we're going to be talking about that today, but hopefully sometime in the future I can connect with you all and we can do the full length training and talk about how to support these clients as well. So it's looking like we're still waiting on the slide. Okay.
waiting on AV department.
Okay. Well, in that case, I guess I can also say about this training, you know, you'll hear a decent amount from me. We also have a couple of videos throughout that bring in testimonials from others that we've worked with. So you'll hear testimonials within those videos from subject matter experts, as well as successful employers that we've worked with, who've done this and have learned, you know, best practices from that, including one who's here today for the panel, Jackie. So you'll see her on video, as well as some of our successful job seekers sharing their experiences as well. So hopefully it won't just be me the whole time. We'll be able to get this AV working and be able to have the videos, you know, projected to you guys and hear their experiences as well. But yeah, but I am excited to talk with you guys all today. So I'm thinking, I don't know, like what your sense is on time. I'm happy to kind of move forward and start our content. If you think there's going to be a while, I'm happy to pause. I don't know what you guys think of that.
Well, problem is you need an extra laptop to do your presentation. Everything that you can't do it off of the Zoom. We're using that as a Zoom. So they're going to be bringing us an extra laptop so you can do the presentation like that. I'm not starting on the Zoom. If you want to continue without, I mean, yeah, just, you know.
You have a laptop. So someone has a
They're
laptop.
going to go get one.
They're getting one. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, I don't want us to get too far behind, so I can kind of do some of it by memory. So bear with me, guys. It's going to be really testing how well I know this material.
Well,
Yeah, right. In my head, I'll just narrate exactly what it says.
and if I can interject, for those of you that are in attendance here in the room, we are recording this. And so when at the conclusion, within the next, say, 24 hours, you should get an email with the recording. So you'll have that PowerPoint presentation as well within that.
Yeah. So you'll have record of how well I.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Everyone will be able to remember it throughout time. Looks like we have this laptop here, so that is exciting. So typically we would start with a video about why we'll hire this population. Once we get those slides up, I'll show you guys that video. But just to give you guys some of the research behind it. So people have, there's a growing body of research on this topic to demonstrate that there actually is a pretty strong business case for hiring this population, not just about being selfless or, you know, having mercy on people who need it, although obviously, you know, hopefully we can all have compassion and understand that we've all taken wrong turns in life and that, you know, we would want people to give us a chance if we, you know, end up in the same situation, but there's also a really strong business case. A lot of it has to do with increased loyalty. So in terms of you know, obviously turnover is kind of being the problem we see. And then the great resignation happening recently where there's, you know, higher rates of turnover than we've ever seen. But what many employers have been finding with this population is they're actually tend to be a lot more loyal than the typical segment of the workforce. And that's because, I mean, you can imagine, like, if you can't take for granted the fact that you're going to get hired, that you're going to be able to leave and respond to another job just like that, and you're grateful because the employer is taking a chance on you and many people wouldn't, then you're going to be a lot less likely to leave. So a Northwestern University study actually found recently that employers that are hiring this population save $746 per employee on turnover costs. So pretty generous savings there for taking a chance on this population. And then in terms of how they perform, a recent Society for Human Resource Management surveyed both HR professionals and managers who are working with this population and found that 67% of HR professionals and 82% approximately of managers, I'll have the exact slide up in a minute and I'll show you guys, but well over the majority of both populations found that justice involved employees perform just as highly, if not higher, than the rest of their workforce. So in terms of how they're doing on the job, there tends to be either no difference or in some cases, employers will say they're potentially something better than other employees. So,
Hey, Cindy, we can't hear the speaker.
Okay. Can you use the microphone so that they can hear you?
yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say push up. Maybe left and right.
letting up when I press either of these buttons. I'm not sure. If, you guys, yeah.
So they just brought it to us and said, here you go.
Apparently, yeah. Sorry about that. Are they able to hear me at all? Or is it if I just speak louder? Will they be able to hear me?
We can read pretty good.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, you're just talking about some people who understand. But yeah. All right. I'll just try to project
Yeah.
and hopefully they can hear. So yeah, and so in addition to the statistics I already mentioned, I think a lot of people also forget how much experience a lot of this population is bringing to the job. So in general, what you're getting when you hire a justice involved worker is not your typical, just 18-year-olds never had a job before. In many cases, they not only had jobs, but if they were in prison, they actually had to hold down a job as part of that, and they're used to that routine, waking up, going to work, putting in a full day, etc. So they've developed some really valuable skills. And there are certain prisons in, both Missouri and Illinois, Department of Corrections that are giving them, actual vocational training in those prisons, showing them how to use forklifts and operate machinery and sew and getting certificates and all these other really valuable skills. So in many cases, they're coming out with good skills that employers are saying that they're using. And many of them are also going to reentry programs post-release that are also providing support and maybe helping with job readiness and some of the soft skills that are needed to really, interview well, communicate well on the job, to be, strong employees in that respect, and then also addressing some of those other needs outside of the job, such as housing and mental health, counseling, and all these other issues that you expect someone who is coming out of prison to face. So in general, many of these employees are getting a lot of support as they're coming out, and so that additional support can also help them be a stronger employee on the job in a way that others not always be. So those are just a few statistics to get us started. One of the things that I, when the science, oh, okay, nice. All right. Okay, well, hopefully we'll be able to get the slides in a few minutes as well, but this is a good omen for the slides following soon. Oh, no. Not what I like to hear. Hopefully we'll. No, I appreciate how much you guys are working to happen. I know technology is often our worst enemy. So to kind of transition us to, obviously one of the biggest questions out there around hiring the population is, what is the risk? That's something that I hear a lot, and at the concern, the heart of most people's concerns is, how can I keep my employees safe, have a productive workplace, and not expose my company to any kind of legal liability? And so that, when we talk through this with employers, one of the things that I like to point to is the risk of a negative hiring lawsuit. So a lot of people are concerned, for good reason, that let's say something happens on the job with a justice involved employee, will our company be liable for that? When in reality, actually, there's only 300 or so cases a year of negative hiring lawsuits that are filed. And less than 1% of employers are found to actually be guilty of negative hiring. So it's, that's an average of 3 cases per year, so 3 employers a year, the whole United States found to be guilty of negative hiring. So when you compare that with the growing tide of discrimination lawsuits that are that are being litigated. So it's because justice involved individuals are disproportionately from certain minority groups that are protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We are seeing a rising number of litigation from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, basically saying blanket criminal record exclusions are basically, disproportionately affecting these groups that are protected under the Civil Rights Act, and therefore we see more and more discrimination lawsuits because of blanket criminal record exclusions, and those numbers are actually higher than the risk of having litigation against you because of negligent hiring. So I'd like to kind of throw those different risks out there just to help employers see that actually it could be more risky for your business to not hire this population ever than it is to hire in a thoughtful and intelligent way, where you look at people's records and character on a case-by-case basis and determine if they're going to be a good fit for your company. So, and then additionally, that same Northwestern University study that I referenced earlier also addresses risk and actually found that people are no more likely to be fired for workplace misconduct if the justice is involved than any other employee. So again, we have these perceptions that, if someone is committed offense early, they're more of a risk on the job. But the research so far, at least, is not bearing that out. And it's shown that actually, in general, most of this population is very grateful to have a job, and if they end up recidivating and going back to prison, it's much less likely when they have a job. It's very unlikely to be because of something they did on the job. And in the case of it, they're very grateful for that opportunity. So overall, risk levels are much lower than what they are. So in addition to not actually having that much risk, there are also some financial benefits. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these because I know there's a full presentation on some of these financial benefits, but just to name them from the onset, there is the federal bonding program, which protects you against any perceived risk from hiring this population. Basically, it is 6 months of completely free fidelity bond insurance from the federal government that you can get for any employee you hire who has a criminal record at any time. There's no limit on that. You can do it as many times as you want to for any number of employees. And it really is just a free, easy built from the federal government. Then there's also the work opportunity tax credit, sometimes referred to as WOTC. That is a tax credit that you can get when you hire someone who is within their first year after a release from prison or a recent criminal conviction. So it has to be a recent one. It has to be within the last year if you're going to be able to claim the work opportunity tax credit. But if you do hire someone who who's eligible for it, then you can get up to $2,400 in tax credit for your business. And again, you can claim that any number of times. So you hire many people from this population who have a conviction or release from a correctional institution within the last year, that can really add up really quickly. So those are some financial benefits I know we're going to learn about later, but those are also perks of hiring this population. And then there's also, in addition to the business benefits that you all are concerned about, there's also community benefits. So I mentioned the lower risk of recidivism. A recent study from America Works and the Manhattan Institute found that recidivism rate, so that's the rate at which people are going back to prison after they come out, goes all the way down into the single digits for those who are employed within their first year after they are released from a correctional setting. So the sooner people are employed consistently, the less likely they are to recidivism. So traditionally, recidivism rates are 50+% in most states across the country, but they go all the way down to single digits when people are employed. So the best thing that we can do as a community to lower crime rates, to increase public safety, and to make the St. Louis region a place where people can live and prosper is really to replace people who are coming out and to to hire them and give them chances in a company. Because that's really the single best thing for success and help them stay out of prison and help us all move to the prosper. Likewise, there are really big savings for the economy. So as you can imagine, it costs a lot to incarcerate someone, and the court fees associated with that are also add up really quickly. So the economic payoff is pretty huge for 100 justice involved people. We hire, it's in the millions of dollars, and I have to look at the slide to tell you the exact number of how much we're saving when we hire 100 justice involved individuals, but it's pretty impressive. So there really are large scale economic benefits as well that we see when we hire this population rather than just incarcerating them and paying for that out of taxpayer money. So a lot of different savings there. And then one last thing I'd like to reiterate on the topic of why we hire this population. I like to show this slide that has the logos of the companies that we're doing this. And there are a lot of really, really prominent ones, including Johns Hopkins Hospital, Smith Market, JP Morgan is a good one that their CEO has really championed this cause, and they had 10% of their new hires in 2020 were people who had criminal records. So a lot of really prominent companies are really championing this cause now. So anyone who comes out of this today and decides they want to become a second employer, I just want you to know you're far from the first company to decide that. It's something that's been tested by a lot of really major companies and found to be successful. And so, oh, you have it? Exciting. Most of my live hire section. Usually I would begin with this video, but now we would close out the live hire section of this video. So thank you guys for bearing with me. Thank you all for listening. Oh no, it was too good to be true, guys.
Think to yourself, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. How can I help in any way? And it just kind of makes sense. If you can connect with one person and give them some hope, teach them a trade, teach them a skill, and maybe you make a small difference in that.
Employment provides income, and income provides support for food, clothing, housing, reintegration into free life. Strong attachment to significant others can prevent people from committing new crimes and returning to prison. So to the degree that your coworkers become significant others and your attachments to them become stable and strong, that's yet another precondition for staying out of prison. Employment also provides a stake in the community, and that's an essential part of any reintegration process. And employment occupies a person's time for 8 hours, perhaps even more each day. And that is time that could otherwise be spent engaged in other activities that should be avoided.
Well, experience with the justice involved employees overall is really positive. It's not like some golden box that you open up and say, wow, everybody's perfect, everything works great. No, everybody's still human beings and there's challenges for that. But overall, I would say the attitude from the justice involved people, a little bit better, a little more grateful for the chance that they're given. They're not as spoiled. They don't take it for granted that they have an opportunity, and they work a little bit harder to make that opportunity work for them.
I've been a prosecutor for almost 11 years. And in my role as a prosecutor, I started out in the violent crime group. I saw these reports that would come out right before someone was sentenced. And there was a common theme. The common theme is that individuals had low education, troubled childhoods, they didn't have jobs, and they lived in dangerous neighborhoods. What I saw through the process of being our reentry coordinator in our drug court, our gang court, our veterans court, and our mental health court, and a second chance court which allows people to get their cases dismissed, is that when we give someone an opportunity to get a job, it increases their morale. After graduations, their families are there, they're proud of them, their employers are there, and they're able to change their lives around by this resource. And so as a prosecutor, in terms of trying to reduce crime, I think that getting a job for someone that can turn into a career is something that's very important. And that's why I do what I do.
When I was in prison, I participated in a lot of educational programs. I have obtained a associate's degree in construction management. I did a lot of vocational training. I rehabilitated myself. Feel like I've been saved. Feel like people trust me. Society accepts me. I'm looked at it in a different way, in a positive way, other than, like a criminal or something like that. And a lot of people that works amongst me in the environment, they don't even know about my background. I feel fairly equal.
I feel like I know a lot of people who have made decisions similar to those that have landed people in a program like this, and just making a series of bad decisions that led them to incarceration or problems with the law. I feel like everybody is like 2 steps away from that. And so knowing that I knew people with those backgrounds that I feel deserve chances, that leads me to believe that everybody with a background like that does deserve a chance. And being in this program says that they want that chance, which is huge. In my experience in going through interviews and in meeting people, it was pretty much exactly the same as employing anybody else. It's just that the folks in these programs happen to have a little more of a story that they're willing to share.
I have regrettably kind of rare vantage point as someone who's been a policymaker, a professor and researcher, but also a prisoner. And there aren't many people that have those 3 vantage points into the problem of mass incarceration in this country and why it is such a revolving door. I would tell employers that in my own experience inside prison, I met some of the smartest people that I've ever known in my life, and I've taught them immediately. There was not a single concept that you would learn at Harvard Business School that you couldn't learn inside of federal prison. Everything from new product launch to promotional incentives to quality control, barriers to entry, territorial expansion, supply chain management. I heard every one of these concepts lucidly explained inside prison. They made mistakes, and most of them would be the first to admit that. The important takeaway from my perspective is to understand that there's a tremendous amount of wisdom, business savvy, entrepreneurial excitement to leverage if we look at the untapped talent inside of our federal and our state prisons.
I would hope that the employers would just take a chance on the ones that's coming out of prison, or even if they just got a criminal background, look at a person for what they are, for what they changed. You know, what you was 20 years ago, you might not be that now. Just take a chance just like you would any other employee.
Take a chance on an ex-offender because they're very loyal. They want to work. They're seeking to work. They want another chance. And when you give them that chance, they give back. And they have a good retention rate. So I would say give that second chance employer, that ex-offender, a chance to work at your institution. And you'll be surprised at how well that person does.
Way more fun to listen to them than to me, isn't it? I appreciate all of their stories and their testimonials. So I think that was a really powerful summary of what, I've been thinking about, advocating about for the last 15, 20 minutes or so. Just a reminder that, of how loyal this population can be and how hard working these guys don't take for granted that chance is available and how, often we had to work really hard for everything that we have in life to, bring that work ethic to the job. So I think, their perspectives are a really valuable reminder of just how, how much this population can bring to any business. So on that note, I'm going to skip us forward to the next section. So a couple more slides. Thank you so much for one more slide. Awesome. So transitioning now into the how to hire section. So this is where we talk about best practices in sourcing and recruiting and interviewing, and then ultimately making a final hiring decision for this population. So we'll talk about sourcing. We'll talk about how do you address the criminal background, which I know is usually the elephant in the room throughout any process where you're working with this population. We'll talk about background check itself. We'll watch some video where our similar crew of people are talking about how we evaluate different kinds of records on a case-by-case basis. And then we'll talk about how we go about making that final hiring decision. So just to talk briefly about sourcing, that's actually something that my organization, as well as many manager organizations in the area, can help with. So as I mentioned, we work with several hundred justice-involved job seekers every year. And we have a couple of ways that you can connect with them as well if you're interested. So we do have a second chance job portal that's online, flu.edu/second-chance. And you can go on there, you can post jobs that are friendly to second chance job seekers, and you can review applications on there. You can also use that site as well to register for our second chance job fair, which is our biggest hiring push of the year. We have these both in the spring and in the fall. The next one is going to be on April 19th, so it's coming right up with the registration deadline of April 8th. So happy to share more information with anyone afterward as well who's interested. But yeah, so you can register for that there. We do it virtually for a variety of reasons. We are continuing to do so even after the pandemic. Because we've gotten particularly good feedback from employers on this virtual format. But basically, we have our job seekers pre-record 2-minute video pitches that talk about their job skills, their job experience, and then how they've overcome adversity and how that makes them a stronger employee. So you get these 2-minute video pitches, and employers in the course of registering to let us know what their hiring needs are, what roles they are looking for, what skill sets they're looking for, and then we send you a slide deck of these videos of candidates that we think have the right skill set. It's a little more tailored than a typical job fair where you don't really know who's going to come to your table. Like, we're kind of in advance going through these candidates and thinking like, oh, I think this would be a good fit for what this company is looking for. And so we give each employer that slide deck, and then they go through those videos and decide who they want to interview after the fair. So it's a really, incredible format that has gotten some good feedback. And so and it's a really good way to connect with this population if you haven't before. So definitely feel free to chat with me if you'd like to. But then again, there's also a bunch of amazing reentry organizations across both Illinois and Missouri for anyone who is interested in connecting with them as well. And they often also have access to justice-involved job seekers. So in terms of addressing the criminal background, which is obviously a sensitive subject and one that everyone is wondering about. So first and foremost, I really recommend if you are a company that is large enough to have HR, to keep it within HR and not to go spreading it around to managers and others who don't necessarily need to know that. Just like any health information will be confidential or be an HR issue, keeping this as well as an HR issue is a really good way to protect that employee's privacy. And to make it so that they don't feel like they have a scarlet letter on them when they start the job. So the reason I say addressing it during or after the interview really depends on when they're speaking with HR and when would be an appropriate time. But we do recommend giving them the opportunity to address that. So Ban the Box is wonderful in a lot of ways in that it encourages people to not put it on a criminal record question on an application, but it can also backfire if it means the criminal record is never being addressed, and then the employer is just getting these background checks back and is saying, well, we can't have this, and just is never giving the employee or the job seeker an ability to explain and kind of provide some context behind what happened and an opportunity to share how much they've grown. So what we really recommend is at some point when they're speaking with HR, whether it's earlier in the process or later, right after an offer has been given, to give them the chance to explain both what happened and why and how they've grown since. So in terms of learning about the nature of the offense, often background checks can be really hard to understand if you're not a lawyer or a judge, right? Like, was someone's assault like they just kind of shoved someone once outside of a bar accidentally, or did they beat someone into a pole? There's really a really wide range of what one word can mean, and it's really hard to interpret it often if you're not familiar with that legalese. And so just giving people the opportunity to share what happened in their own words can be really helpful for understanding their, both their character and how much they own it, right? So hearing someone say, hey, I made a mistake, it was not a good point in my life, and here's what I've done to make amends. That can also be really indicative of how strong an employee they're going to be, right? Employers all the time ask about what is your greatest weakness, or tell me about a time you made a mistake, or tell me about this, because it's valuable to hear how people handle their weaknesses and how they handle being at their lowest point, and then how they come back from that, right? And so hearing how someone has, dealt with something that was a major setback and a major mistake in their life, and how they've turned around since, can really give you some insight into what it will look like on the job for them to take ownership of mistakes and to learn and grow as an employee. So we recommend kind of listening for that, giving them the opportunity to put offenses into context. Because again, sometimes, obviously substance abuse is a major challenge right now. Sometimes what they did was in the context of an addiction that they no longer have. So giving them the chance to say that and say how much they've changed because they no longer have that addiction issue. And also just making sure in all of this to give them the opportunity to also talk about their skills and their experience, and not making everything about their criminal record such that they feel like all that there is to them. Because as I mentioned before, they also have a lot of other things to bring, and you should definitely get time to talk about that as well. So just to get really nitty gritty, I found employers really like having the language specifically like what to say to ask about this, because it can be really hard to do in a sensitive way. And so I have a couple of example questions that you could ask to kind of bring this conversation up. And so that first question just says, as part of the next phase of this hiring process, we will run a criminal background check. If there's anything we might find for which you would like to provide context, please feel free to share. Just puts it out there, doesn't force them to say anything if they don't want to, but it gives them the opportunity so that they can put it in their own words and tell their own story before you're seeing it on a piece of paper and wondering what it is, and then maybe jump into the worst conclusions. I think we all do often because of crime TV shows. We all kind of see these words or hear these things and probably assume the worst. And so letting them explain first is often a good way to let them share their story and give you the more human version of what happened. And then the second one just acknowledges, like if you're getting them through an organization like TWA or any other prison management organization, you're going to know in advance that they have a record. So it's kind of just acknowledging, like, hey, we know that we got you through, this agency, so therefore you probably have a record. So you want to just talk about how you think that would impact, your skills as an employee and how would that make you maybe a better employee for us. So these are a couple of options for how you might address this when you're talking to your prospective employees, but I'm sure there are others as well. So just, keeping in mind, obviously, the sensitivity around the subject. I think, you can also feel free to be creative and come up with your own ways. And if you guys come up with any really good questions that you think work well, feel free to let me know, and I can spread the word to other employers as well. Okay, so next slide. So just talking about background checks briefly, I'm guessing, most of you guys are probably running background checks, and that is usually a helpful tool for just understanding and making sure that, there's full honesty about what is on a job seeker's record. One thing I do highly recommend to employers, though, that not everyone knows, is just to make sure that your background check company is fully accredited. So there's the NABS.com website where you can get a list of accredited background check companies. And it can get you into a lot of trouble if your background check company is not accredited. And if they're turning up false results that you're making employment decisions based off of, like if you had someone who was upset about being denied employment based on false results, and it could get you into a lot of trouble. So we just really recommend making extra sure that you're using an accredited company to get your background check results. And a few red flags here that I have just to, let you know things to look out for. If you see any of these, it might mean that there's accreditation issues with your company. If they're providing instant results that are extra cheap, they're not being super specific about their methods. They're mismatching people with common names, and confusing them. They're showing expunged offenses and misclassifying offenses. Just anything like that, just keep an eye out for. And that may mean that you have some issues with your background check company that need to be addressed. So before we play this video, just to kind of introduce it, we're kind of transitioning into how do I evaluate a candidate on a case-by-case basis. So I get their background check back, I've talked to them about their record, I have all this information about what they've done, why, how they've grown, how do I make this final decision on whether or not to hire this person. And so I found that a lot of employers, draw lines in the sand around certain offenses. And in certain cases, with certain jobs, you need to do that. So the EEOC recommends that you do the nature test, where you think about how the nature of the crime applies to the nature of the job itself. And is there like a relevance there that would make it that you shouldn't hire this person for this position? And also how long this offense has the crime occurred and how relevant is it still? So I think that's a really helpful metric to go by. But I also want to talk about, and what we talk about a lot in this video, is some of the more serious offenses that employers are much more likely to be nervous about, understandably, such as violent and sex offenses. And so, obviously understanding that these offenses will not be a fit for every single employer, I do like to encourage employers that some of the best job seekers we've worked with have had some of these more serious offenses. And that's usually because they've, often had longer sentences. They were 18 when they committed this crime, and now they're like 40, and they just are a fundamentally different person than they were, and they're just not doing that again. And in fact, recidivism rates are actually lowest for people with both homicide and sex offense crimes on their record. So again, not going to dictate anything for any employer. Everyone has their reasons for choosing the policies that they do, and obviously everyone needs to be comfortable with the policies that are in place. But I do like to encourage employers to think about that data and just that anecdotal experience too, that a lot of employers have seen, that some of their best workers are the ones with those most serious crimes, because often, you know, you can overlook a really, really key segment of the workforce when you draw those lines in the sand. So this video will kind of share a little more about that.
In terms of employers trying to assess whether to hire someone who has a particularly troubled background, with maybe violence in it, one thing you have to think about is those folks have served a lot of time, usually. They don't want to go back to prison, and they have a lot of incentive not to do so. They also are being supervised by a probation officer who has incentivized them to go get a job. And they missed a lot of time with their families. They missed a lot of time with their friends. And the ones that I've seen, particularly in our game court, they really do want to change their lives. They're older, they're more mature, and they've seen what they missed. So I would encourage employers to give them a chance.
The best applicants I've seen, and some of the people returning to the community from prison that I've seen be the most successful, are those who were convicted of murder. In part, that's because of the phenomenon that a lot of scholars have recognized with people aging out of criminal behavior after their 40s. Most people who were convicted of very serious violent offenses, they'll do 20 years or longer in prison. And so they won't come out until they're in their mid-40s or even their 50s. Those folks are no longer interested in the kinds of things that they did when they were, 18, 19, 20, when most of them were charged with the offense that led them to prison.
The recidivism rates for those who went to prison for a property crime are far higher than for those who went to prison for having committed a violent crime. Now, that doesn't guarantee that the individual won't commit another crime, but the chances are better. For a program like TWA, there are supports provided for the individual that assists an employer ensuring that the individual will show up to work punctual, complete the job successfully. Employers who need, they should not overlook the supply that comes from persons who have come out of prison, including those who went to prison for a violent offense.
The positions that we were looking to fill, they are client facing. For us, it was really important that somebody feel comfortable speaking to somebody and kind of being able to take the orders and do that sort of thing. And so then in meeting this employee, the biggest thing that stood out to me was that he had actually received a life sentence. So he had never anticipated getting out of prison, and even in knowing that, he continued to better himself through the process. And I think that people miss the aspect of community. The thought that he wanted that community, he wanted that human interaction, he wants people to talk to. It really spoke to me to know that he had taken the time to better himself, and also just to know his motivation was beyond well, I need a job. It's so much more than that.
There's nobody giving these type of chances either. I mean, we desperately need people to do this. We've found out about other sex offenders that we know, and there's other really lovely people out there that have made very bad decisions, but again, they need that social support, they need that economic sort of safety net there. So I feel like this is helping to protect children. When they kept talking about, protecting children, which I am 100% for, I thought, well, what about my children? When they send you to prison and then this sort of civil death that they have afterward where nobody will hire them, it's like you've literally taken away this person's ability to act on their responsibility to provide for their family. The felon who's not working is just sitting at home watching TV. It's the wife that's out working to compensate for his lack of income. It's his kids that are, when he's gone to prison, that are there to do the dishes and to help with the little kids and to clean and just do all that stuff way above and beyond what a kid should have to do to make up for it. So the way I saw it affect my kids, I just thought, this is not right. They never did anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just gonna go back to school and get my master's, and now I just have to work for a paycheck. So I had dreams for my own life too, and I'm just instead putting all that energy into making sure that my kids can still follow their dreams despite this little nuclear bomb that got thrown into our very normal family otherwise.
The big thing that I look at is the word criminal. I kept saying to myself, Vivian, you cannot allow that to define who you are. This is a portion of your life that you're going through, but it cannot define who you are. But with the resources that I was able to step into, which I never knew existed, gave me kind of a, I don't know how to say it, a knot in the rope to hold on and survive. And they genuinely just were concerned about me. And I've gotten kind of back to me.
So, as you can see, just a really powerful summary of, some of the stories that you see on this population and how, at the end of the day, people aren't the worst thing they've ever done. And I feel like, as someone who watched a lot of crime TV shows growing up, I think I always grew up with the impression that if someone does something violent, that's just who they are. It's just a part of how their brain is wired. It's different from the rest of us, and that's always who they're going to be. And in my experience working closely with this population for years now has really just shown me that that's not the end of the story for these people, and that almost everyone that I've worked with has ended up just going on to lead, healthy careers and thriving family lives. And so giving them the opportunity to work at our companies makes it that much, more possible for them to actually overcome that first moment of their lives. So just in summarizing factors to consider for that final hiring decision, we address most of these, thinking about the offense's relevance to the job and how long it has been since that offense, as well as the seriousness of offense in context. So remembering to take into account the context of what happened and why, and whether that context is likely to happen on the job or whether it was a very specific context that's something that triggered them that would really never happen in an employment setting. And then the extent to which they're taking ownership of that offense and their growth trajectory since, and the work they've done since committing that offense to change who they are and lead a better life. So that's the final hiring decision. And so normally at this point, I would transition into how to support these employees on the job, but we don't have time for that. But I will, my contact info, I believe, is on the next slide, or discussion questions that we may or may not have time for. I don't know what's on time. Yeah. Okay. Well, my contact info is on that slide, and so please feel free to contact me. Also, talk to me afterward. I would love to get you guys connected to this population, invite you guys to our next job fair. And do we have time for a couple questions now? Yeah. Okay. So if you guys have any immediate questions too, I'd love to answer any questions you have about the presentation. Yes.
Do you currently only, and I'm sorry, this is for me in your presentation, but do you only work with employers or do you work with any correctional agencies?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we work most closely with employers, and we get all of our referrals from correctional agencies like Citizen Roundtable, at the state level, as well as the organizations. So in most cases, like they're the ones who do the job readiness programs and doing, providing that support, and then once they're kind of ready for a job, they call us up and say, hey, here's the person, here's the resume, like, we work, and then we go through our employer relationship. Okay, who would be able to fit that and support me. And it works on a larger scale than
And you have an employer who is from the Illinois side?
we do, yes. We work throughout the St. Louis metro area, so specifically St. Clair, Madison County, City, St. Louis County, and Clark. And that includes oh.
Freddie and I both work for the Illinois Department of Employment Security, and we have a program where we actually go into IDOC facilities, and we actually help incarcerated veterans, not the entire population, but incarcerated veterans. We teach them skills about how to get a job once they get out. And it has been a very, very helpful program for many formerly incarcerated veterans.
Awesome. We'd love to work with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get my contact info next week to reach me out.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to come to the federal prison to participate in the job fair and to present this information to the community? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can go through the ground, the well, and that would be.
Anybody else wants to come with that? Our guys mostly just have never, had real jobs per se. So, that's one of the biggest things that they struggle with is the interview itself. I laugh because I'm around these guys every day for 8 hours a day. And they get nervous as all get out when they're trying to do an interview with me. I'm like, but they're like, I don't think so. So anything that would help ease that would be more than it is. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question that you there?
Next up is Freddie Buckingham from IPS. No. That's it, right?
That'd be great.
This ain't working.
Something.
All right, so while that's loading up, my name is Freddie Buckingham. I'm with the Illinois Department of Employment Security. I'm the Southern Region Business Services and Veteran Outreach Manager. I cover pretty much from Madison County all the way down to the bottom of the state. I have the veteran staff that works with me. They cover, have 3 beavers and 2 bevops that cover all that portion of the state, which is in 48 counties, I think.
Yeah, the lower 48.
Yeah. All right, excellent. All right, so I was asked to talk to you guys about WT, which is federal tax credits, and fidelity bonding. First section we're going to cover is tax credits. Next slide. This is a little wordy. I did it on purpose so that if anyone wants a copy of it, I can send you it and you can read it at your pleasure. The federal government offers tax credits for the above group. If you take a look at all the individual groups on this slide here, what stands out is these are groups that are transitioning. These are folks that are either transitioning from service, from incarceration, from being financially unstable, for working on being on food stamps, and on TANF, summer youth. And what the point of this program is to help them transition to the workforce. Next slide. Like I said, this is a little wordy. There's 2 categories that of the tax credit. The first are for those that are on long-term TANF. Those individuals, you'll be able to draw tax credits for 2 years. The first year is at 40% for hours worked at least 400 hours, up to a maximum, I believe the maximum is 9,600 for the tax credit right now. And then the second year, it'll be 50% of their wages based off what they make, but they have to work at least 40 hours. Next slide. And then everybody else off that group falls into this one where they, for the first year, they either get 25% or up to 120 hours work, or if they work 400 hours more, you can get 40% of tax credit. Next slide. And then fidelity bonding. What is fidelity bonding? Fidelity bonding is a federal bonding program designed to help provide bonds for people that were incarcerated. It is designed to basically provides you guys an insurance for hiring those individuals that have a questionable past. A lot of insurance companies won't bond a person that has theft on their record. So what we do is we provide a bond that covers you for up to $25,000 to $25,000 loss. Next slide. And there's no approval process. If you need it, come in, fill out the paperwork, go to our website, fill out the paperwork, turn it in. We'll send you the paperwork showing that you've got the bond for them. There's no reason to not get the bond. Next slide. The bond only covers for theft, embezzlement, loss that would cover from if the individual does steal or from the company. It does not cover liability insurance. It's not meant to be a liability insurance. It's strictly for theft. So I was being really quick. I told her I wouldn't need 30 minutes. So if you go to ides.illinois.gov, there's links to both these programs, the WOTC program and the fidelity bonding. You can get the forms to fill out on our website. For the fidelity bonding, you take that form right to any local office. They will process it there, or you can. There's a email address for Pat Durkin. You email to him, he'll process it for you. For WOTC, there's for the TANF individuals, there's an online application you can fill out right there on our website and apply right there. Everyone else, you send it, there's a web address on our website up in Chicago. You send the paperwork off to them, they process it for you. Any questions? Okay, so we did bring you a little bit of brochures about the programs. We also have our business services flyer that breaks down a few more business services programs with IDES, and it also has our contact information back on the back table if anyone needs it.
Originally, we were gonna break from 10:30 to 10:45, so. Let's be back here at 10:15. 10:15, okay, and then we'll start with 10, okay?
Hello, hello. Good.
Alan, you need a contact information, it's on our form over here. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's on the form over there. So let's go look at that.
that would be phenomenal because on Tuesday. Okay, good. Yeah, Jeff,
What you want? How you doing?
Just fine. How are you?
Good. Good seeing you.
Good. Good to see you. So,
Good job.
yeah, well, no, I don't need to, well, yeah, well, anyway.
I sent you an email though, didn't I?
Yeah. And I send it out to the business group.
Yeah.
First week in May, and I don't know the exact dates, but Jim Potts from DCEO is coming down to do training for our staff on IWDS. We used to have it in a training center that was in the basement of the 911 office.
I remember.
And we're not able to do that. Nobody's returning calls and such. Could we borrow space? We need computers.
I got a library full of brand new computers.
Okay.
You send me your dates.
Okay.
And what I'll do is reserve that space for you.
Cool. That would be awesome.
I mean, how many people are you expecting?
I'm not sure because it'll be our staff and then the youth staff. So
I mean, I probably got about 30 computers.
Okay, I'm thinking it's going to be 15, maybe 20 at most.
Good. No. You tell me, and I'll make sure you got the space you need.
All right. Thank you.
That's
what we thought. But,
I got you.
But I wanted to ask and make sure that not just email and say, hey, Gary, we're coming, and this is.
There you go. That's it. Which one of these people are from Concordia?
Back in the navy blue jacket.
Talking
to Freddie.
Okay, Freddie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I was wondering because I want this with you.
Okay, good. Doing all right. How about you, Alan? Good.
We're okay as far as the Zoom is going.
As far as I can tell, yeah.
How many people are on?
Our Illinois WorkNet team is doing awesome as always. 25.
Awesome. And we got about 30 something here, so a lot of people that were, I guess they registered and they're on the Zoom and not.
Hello, everyone. Appreciate these students here to get started on the panel part of our Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second part of our event. This is our panel discussion. We have with us up in our panel, we have agencies that work with returning citizen job seekers. We have, and we did have several employers that were going to speak on hiring from that population, but unfortunately, 2 of our employers had to drop out due to COVID. So yeah, you know, it happened. So unfortunately, but we have these great people up here. We have Tom Grant. He is the Senior Vice President and Director of Concordance Employment Agency. We have Jennifer Parrott. She is the Reentry Administrator for Illinois Department of Corrections. We have Ashton Russell.
She is a branch manager of AOS Staffing. And then we have Jackie, and I hope I say her.
You're not going to, it's Phoebe.
Phoebe, okay, I would have never. She
No
is
one ever
the-
does.
She is the owner of Sugar Box Sweet Shop, and she was also on a couple of the videos that we saw earlier. So Tom's gonna do a little presentation, and then we're just gonna go down the line, and then we'll have questions and answers.
Thank you, Bonnie. Good morning, everyone. I have 10 minutes to talk about the situation here that probably take 2 hours. Right. So I'm going to give you the kind of the Reader's Digest version. And I'm going to kind of, as I was listening to Lisa's presentation, I think the message that I'm going to convey to you kind of ties into what you learned from Lisa's perspective this morning. Concordance Employment Agency, we are an alternative staffing organization. We focus on individuals that carry a felony conviction. That's my working group. And we've been in operation for a little over 5 years. We're based in Maryland Heights, Missouri. We've serviced over 1,000 individuals since we started the program. So our mission is simply to reduce recidivism. That aspect where people are find themselves in the justice involved system. They get out, they don't have any social supports, they commit a crime, they go back, on average, people go back 7 times. So it's a huge issue and it's a huge cost. And so our mission is to reduce recidivism. And we'll be able to talk about some of our results up to this point. So Ethan can send it to the next slide. So the first thing that came to mind was that Lisa, on one of her videos, had a family member whose husband was incarcerated. And she talked about having 2 kids, standard family of 4. And that kind of points to this point right here. 100 million people are impacted by mass incarceration every year. There are 30 million felons in our country. And we would argue the majority of them are unemployed or underemployed. And we also know this speaks a lot to what we do about racial equity. 12 million felons are Black. You have 45 million Blacks in our country. And so it's disproportionate to who is incarcerated in our system. So we're all about racial equity and racial equality. And you'll hear some of that in our message. So out of this slide that's really busy, I want to talk about 2 things. We're a healing first model more than anything else. It's not a healthy population. 80% of our participants have some sort of mental health disorder and 83% have a substance abuse issue. Now for those of you that are employed, if you have a situation where you are hiring people and they may be sticking for a while and they leave, or they start showing up late or not showing up on time or not showing up at all. And if you have this constant revolving door, I would challenge you to say that it's not just because of the culture of your company or the nature of the work that you do. We would tell you that there are other issues behind the scenes that are not being addressed. So that's why Concordance is a healing first model. We want to get that person on a solid foundation before they move forward, especially into employment. And so that's what it's all about, is a healing first model. Next slide. So our mission was to dramatically reduce recidivism rates. And data would show that the number of recidivism has not changed in 30 years, meaning that this impact of people going in and coming back out has been an issue, and that number hasn't changed in over 30 years. Now, my slide shows that we have seen a 44% reduction in recidivism, which has been validated by an outside evaluator. I'm happy to report that I haven't changed the slide yet, but now it's 56%. So it's first model And all the supports that go behind that are the reasons why we're seeing success with our participants in our program. A lot of information on this slide, but what I want to kind of just point on this, if you're reading as I'm talking, the secret sauce to our model is that it's holistic, it's integrated, and it's evidence informed. So everything that a participant of our program needs is contained within concordance. So whether you need housing assistance, legal services, help with family, reunifying with families, whether you need help with mental health, substance abuse, if you need physical help, if you need something to help you physically, job readiness skills, writing a resume. We talked about how do you interview. Lisa talked about that. We train to those kinds of things. The secret sauce is that when someone is released from prison and they have a number of needs that they need to get situated, unfortunately, those services are fragmented. Legal services here, probation and parole over here, going to a hospital over here. And unfortunately, not everybody can go to all these appointments. It's fragmented. So it's holistic, it's integrated. So anything that one of our participants requires is at importance. So we control that outcome. Man, that's a lot of information. I'm not told you. But, just what I want to point out is if we have HR individuals in the room, view this like an EAP style of wraparound service. And that's what it is. It's almost like we're orientating and assisting individuals and providing them supports as you would with your own type of benefits within your program before they release and go into employment. So I'll just kind of highlight that. That's all. We talk about the right skills, the right jobs. I just want to talk real briefly about, when we partner with hiring partners, there's a few key concepts that we look for. Number one, do you hire from the felony population? Do you pay a livable wage? Do you have the type of jobs that are easily transferable in terms of skills? And do you hire large amounts of people? Because we're not just talking about servicing a few, we're talking about servicing 1,000. And if we're going to provide the resources like career coaching, we want to be able to go to one site and serve a number of people versus just going from one site to another. So it doesn't fit everyone, and there are some individual circumstances that we deal with. But the fact is that that's kind of what concordance looks for. But also, one of the hindrances of running a model like this is we're also a compliant company. What does that mean? If you tell me that you're going to take anybody that doesn't have a violent background, well, I have to comply with that. But who do I serve? I serve anybody who has a murder conviction down to a drug conviction and everything in between. That can be forgeries, that can be assaults, theft, robberies. My charge is to employ every one of these individuals. So I'm always looking for companies that are able to hire all of our participants. It makes just running the model a lot smoother that way. But we don't discount those that have less restricted backgrounds. Because in some of those cases, those are the more higher paying jobs. You have that right to say, hey, for me getting the right person, I'm going to pay you more in order to get that type of quality person. Next slide. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm just going to wrap this up by saying that we're an 18-month program, 6 months pre-release, 12 months post-release. So we start working with individuals before they get out of prison. We start setting the stage for when they get out for the first day. So now unfortunately with the pandemic, we were not able to provide our services inside of the prison, so we had to go to a virtual component, but we still were providing those services pre-release. So it's an 18-month program. It's robust, it's rigorous, it's not a rubber stamp. Participants of our program, we have no selection who comes to us. We work with Missouri Department of Corrections and the Illinois Department of Corrections, and they're the ones who tell us who we can approach about being a part of our program. So it's interesting from a staffing service perspective. I do no recruiting, none. I'm only as good as the people that come through my door. But here's the thing, this is where our success comes in. When they finally get to the point where they go into employment, which starts with a part-time component and then a full-time component, they have become some of your most loyal, lifelong, productive employees. We see it because we hear it time and time again. And that's why this Healing First model is what it's all about. Very rigorous, but by the time they get to the end to graduate, they've earned it. And so then when they become an alumni, now it's about, okay, let's talk about the next job. We're only going to provide them that next job where they need more skill, more education. We'll provide that to them, but they have to earn that. And we're the connector to that. So I'm stopping. I used over 10 minutes, but I appreciate Bonnie having the opportunity to talk a little bit about importance. And with Lisa, when she talks about working with reentry organizations, we are representative of one of those. Thanks.
Down, and then if you want to do a little, I didn't get a PowerPoint, but if you want to do a little self-introduction and go.
Absolutely. Good morning. I'm Jennifer Parrick, Reentry Administrator for the Illinois Department of Corrections. My main focus being here today is to connect and find resources for our men and women leaving DOC's custody. On any given year, we have about 15,000 plus individuals that leave our DOC facilities, 26 plus facilities in the state of Illinois. We have individuals returning to all counties of the state. In January of 2020, Illinois Department of Corrections created a reentry unit. Not to say that we weren't doing reentry at all of our DOC facilities, but we were, but we wanted to be more intentional in how we prepared men and women to be successful when they left our custody. So we've done a lot of work around technology. I will say the one positive for us in DOC of COVID is we had to pivot a little bit and adopt technology where the world is going, but we were lagging very, very far behind in how giving access to technology, teaching people how to apply for jobs, using emails, all of those things. So we've had to really be intentional over the last 2 years in developing technology, teaching people how to use technology, and changing with the growing workforce and how they hire people, how they retain people, and taking advantage of those opportunities. Some of the things that we are doing on the DOC side that we're very proud of is vital document obtainment, making sure people have birth certificates, social security cards. We have a partnership with Secretary of State now, where people are walking out the door with their state ID, not a temporary, 5-year hard card state ID, trying to prepare people to be very work ready as soon as they leave. As Tom stated, there's all these needs when someone gets out the door. And it's very quickly easy to revert back to what you know, go back to places that are familiar to you, even though they may not be the best choices for you. So we're trying really hard to make sure people have all of those essentials before they leave, and also offering GED education, college credit courses, a lot of vocational training. We're doing manufacturing, welding, automotive, horticulture, construction, culinary arts. We continue to look and find ways to expand out services that we can offer people so they are work ready. So the missing component really for us is connecting people to employers. So I'm thrilled to be sitting up here and in this room with all of you, because that's really the opportunity for people to go out and be able to make a living wage and support themselves, support their family. We have mothers and fathers that are in our custody that love their children, just like all of us in this room love our children. and want to be able to go out, be successful, and be able to provide for their children. And that employment piece is so vital to that. A couple of things that are exciting about being in central southern Illinois is DOC, currently in partnership with NYU, has a $4 million Department of Labor grant with a focus on St. Clair County, Madison County, all the way over to the east part of the state and down, which is focusing on being able to provide additional education, vocational opportunities for men in 5 southern DOC facilities with a focus on individuals that are returning to these counties. And one of the major components of that Department of Labor grant is employment. So that's why our team is here today, to be able to connect. And it really takes everyone. It takes the employers, it takes DOC, it takes the men and women and the hard work that how they've spent their time in a positive manner, and our community-based organizations to wrap those services around people to be successful. So thank you all for being here today. I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm going to pass the mic down, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions about things happening at DOC. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashton. I am the branch manager for AOS Staffing. We are located in Maryland Heights. However, we provide staffing and employment services for all the surrounding counties in St. Louis and on the Illinois side. There's probably a few program directors or job coaches in here that we've worked with in the past that have been successful. So after hearing those two speak, and I don't have my fancy slideshow, I have my handy dandy notebook here. But I kind of feel like the middleman in all of this after hearing everybody speak. So on the returning citizen side, what we do is we work and partner with a lot of the community, St. Louis community organizations, and on the Illinois side as well, providing that second chance employment opportunity to help returning citizens, regardless if they have a background, if they're from the VA, be it veterans, or even persons with disabilities, literally helping them reach their full potential. It's me and my team right here, us 3 ladies, and when I tell you our name is in the streets, it really is. It really is. I'm so proud to have these ladies. But what we bring to the table when working with returning citizens is we really bring that non-judgmental attitude. With that being said, you know, it's a hard transition back into the workforce. We have applicants come in who can't get their social security card, can't get their birth certificate, they don't have their ID. Some don't even know how to fill out tax forms. Some can't even fill out the application. Some need glasses and they can't afford to get new glasses to fill out the application. One of the biggest struggles as well is getting them on the laptop to do their training videos to help them understand what personal protective equipment, what they need to be successful on the job. But the biggest thing, I think, you know, the struggle lately has been that employer and returning citizen engagement. So what we do on the other end with employers is we really engage them and encourage them and let them know, you know, if you do hire somebody with a background, do not let their past define them. Because just like Tom said, and many of you know, some of the most loyal workers are literally, they have a background. They know they need to go to work. They know they need to support their family. When they come out, they have nothing. I work downtown with the VA and even some of the veterans coming out of the Army. Sometimes it just makes you feel, you know, you're super blessed, especially with what we do. We're going to find that right fit opportunity for an employer and for the returning citizen. That way we can help make that match, and so that returning citizen can be successful. We work also with a lot of job coaches. We work with halfway houses, and I mean, I would say 60% of my workforce right now, they have a background. We really don't go off of their charges. We go off their charge date, and the growth is huge. Growth is huge in our staffing industry, working with returning citizens. If they have a charge in 2014, and even when an employer goes, okay, so let's say 7 years ago, but they completely changed their life, they have the skill set. Most of them have learned these skill sets in prison. That's what employees or employers do not understand. A guy can fix a refrigerator for you. He can build a house. He can work on machinery. You have no idea what education they got inside of the prison system. And this goes for men and women. You know, women too. It's not just men felons out here. So for employers, it really is that transparency from us that you get. Obviously, due to confidentiality, we're not going to let you know what's on the background. We'll let you know, hey, this is what's going on. We've seen growth in this guy. We're gonna advocate for that returning citizen. On the returning citizen side for us and my team, it's really helping them reach their full potential. That's why I'm here today. It is an honor to speak. I'm in front of you all. But again, like I said, I feel like the middleman. So if anybody, any job coaches, any organizations want to reach out, my assistant Tiffany has my information. Also, any employers who kind of want to use me as that middleman to help, you know, the returning citizens transition back into the workforce. Hey, I'm here. You know what? Let's talk. Let's negotiate. If they don't work out, let's, you know, we'll try to find that returning citizen somewhere else to go, or try to, you know, see what's going on. I am very, very involved in what I do. I will have my customers call me and say, hey, you know, Joe's been acting out. Some customer or some employers don't understand that institutionalized mindset that returning citizens have. That's really hard to get out of, guys. It really is for them to get, you know, you can give them good constructive or good criticism, maybe even just soft constructive criticism, and they're going to take it way out of proportion. Negative feedback isn't always, you know, the route to go with them. So it's how to kind of use your words with those returning citizens. Just like I said, some don't even know how to come in and fill out their paperwork. So imagine them trying to learn what you do with your company. But like I said, there's so many loyal people or returning citizens out here with those backgrounds that, you know, you can keep for life. One other thing I do want to mention with employers is don't hold against them if they have to go see their probation officer. Don't hold it against, you know, for absenteeism. That's really a big thing in our office. Employers get frustrated because they can't help if they have to go to court. They cannot help if they have to go there to see their PO. They can't help if they have to, anything to do with them returning into the workforce that's legal bounding, they cannot help that. So it's that leniency that we really look for when we find or put a returning citizen back to work. Because we don't want them to fail. We also know our customer needs to, you know, keep their business up. But all in all, I will be that middleman. You know, if you have a company and you know you want to help the mission, use my staffing services. Also, if you have any returning citizens, send them to us, and we'd be more than happy to, you know, transition them back and help find them the right fit opportunity.
Hi there. So I am the end cap after the middleman. I am an employer that tries to actively hire folks that are justice involved. So, I'm Jackie Hebe. I have a Sugar Butt Sweet Shop and Little O's Old Time Soda Fountain both in St. Charles. So we hired our first justice involved employee in May of 2021. Sorry, I'm looking at Lisa like she's gonna remember. I believe it was May of 2021. So we're almost a year into that agreement. We hired, we interviewed several people. Not everybody was a great fit. A lot of the times whenever you're looking to hire people, it's gonna be just like hiring folks from the general population. So you're gonna get some folks that are super interested in your position. You're gonna get some folks that aren't. I try to kind of come into it the same as I come into it with anybody else. We're small, which is kind of fighting against us a little bit, just because I would love to hire, I would love to hire everybody that we could. We right now actually have a waiting list for folks that have been released that are trying to get on with us. And if COVID would just stop and we could just get a little bit busier and more people could order some cookies, we would be able to add so many more people to our team. After working with our first justice involved employee, I would really like to transition to being a fully justice involved staff, not hiring people from the general population at all. I know a lot of people talk about how it's selfless and how, you know, people hear that from me and they think, oh my gosh, that's like, you're so kind, you're so good. It's none of that. Like, let me tell you, it is not me being kind. It is not me being good. These people that are coming out, they want to work. They're so much more motivated, so much more direct in their communication. They're so much more in touch, especially if they've gone through things like transformative workforce or working with connections to success, where they know what they're thinking and they know how to solve it. They know how to communicate. They've gone through this. That is part of what's happening when folks are being released. And it makes such a big difference to go from
employees that are stressed out, that do not know from general population, that don't know when to just say, you know what, you guys, I'm a little overwhelmed, I'm gonna step out, or I'm gonna go hide in the bathroom for 5 minutes. Everybody wants to do that at some point. I do that all the time. You just need to get away. But I found through almost 12 years of being in business, working with people from the general population, we're not teaching people those skills in school, which is a whole nother, like I can talk for 4 hours on that, feeding into the reason why we have the criminal justice problem that we have. But people from the general population, for whatever reason, are missing those skills where they're able to look at themselves and go, you know what, I need to step away for a minute. Where everyone that I have spoken to, everyone that I have interviewed, everyone that I have met that has gone through Transformative Workforce Academy, or that has just self-identified as someone from that background, comes from a place where they are able to communicate so much more effectively. And a lot of also what we're seeing is, again, being like a soda shop and an ice cream parlor, especially down there, we're hiring a lot of college kids, a lot of teenagers. These are people that just don't have that capacity to handle some of those things. They don't know how to handle the stress. And what I'm seeing from folks from this specific population is it's a complete 180 from where everybody else is. Also, again, with hiring teenagers and that kind of thing, everybody knows now, like, it's not millennials anymore, it's whatever the next generation is. But, everybody talks about wanting to handle these people with kid gloves and, having to do like the compliment sandwich when you give feedback. And for us, like, I am not built that way. I am built that, you don't want to get lost in those things. You're not going to be rude or harsh with your feedback, but especially in a situation where your storefront is busy, you've got a lot of things going on, maybe you have things on a manufacturing line or something like that, you need to say, yo, get your fingers out of the machine, you're going to lose a finger. You can't be like, hey, so your hair looks really cute, you're going to lose a finger, I like your shoes. Nobody's got time. Like, you got to be able to give that and know that people are giving you feedback to keep you safe. And I think that is one big thing to kind of take away. And then just to also piggyback on some of the other things that have been said with talking about like skills that folks learn that you don't even realize they have. Let me tell you, it has been like, as a small business owner with 2 storefronts, the number of like drains that I have had to clean out, or the number of times that I'll have, I say girls, we hire guys too, but that the girls will call and say, the outlet doesn't work. And it's like, well, did you push the little red buttons to reset the thing? What else did you have plugged into it? And it's like, it's been so amazing to have somebody that has these skills that can problem solve well and truly on their own, and just handle it. And to get in a position where, with the employee that we have, I trust him well and truly. Again, we're a small business. If there's any other small business people out there, I can tell you, our employee, he's got keys to both of our storefronts. He can come and go as he pleases. I would trust him. He has driven our personal truck to make deliveries. Like, I would give him a key to our house, and I would not bat an eye. He would be the most trustworthy person. I cannot emphasize that enough. And he was convicted of murder. He received a life sentence. Those laws were changed. If you speak to him, he will tell you he did the crime. He was not wrongly convicted. He takes full ownership of it. And knowing him now, almost 38 years after his conviction, I can't find a person in him that would have ever done that. He's changed so much. It's just, it really makes a difference to give these people this chance, and to think about how long something has been. So that was kind of rambling, but that's my deal.
I just want to tell a quick story. So we have a gentleman who works for us, and he did 27 years. And he went in when he was 16 for a double murder, for being molested, and he killed his molesters. So anyway, his story is, when I say heart-wrenching, it's heart-wrenching. However, he just got out last August, and We connected with him, not even probably 45 days after he got out. And his biggest struggle and his, I think when he got out, his 2-year-old nephew was on the iPhone. Knew how to navigate through that thing like he made it anything. And he, then our employee, he couldn't even navigate the phone. So that's just stories that you have to think about. But guess what? This guy can rebuild a whole car. He can literally rebuild a whole car. He can't navigate this phone, but he knows how to rebuild a whole car. So, and we have numerous stories like that, but when she said, the 30-something years, we employ people with that kind of time. But you have to see beyond their past. You really do. I hire everything from janitors all the way up to, finance departments and HR departments. So when we work with returning citizens, we really have to have that non-judgmental attitude. 1 minute I can be interviewing somebody that did 27 years, the next minute I could be interviewing an executive. So just put yourself in my shoes. And what I do, we're small. We just opened our division back last year. Me and my assistant been in the trenches for almost a year doing this together. I moved from Kansas City for my division. Go Royals. Go Chiefs. Even though, but I've been in this industry 14 years. St. Louis is very, very bus line driven. Well, St. Louis, Illinois as well. It's very bus line driven. So think about that when you're looking for people. It might take them longer to get there. They might have to be absent because the bus line is not running. That's been one of our biggest struggles as well, trying to get them transportation to work. Felons want to ride with felons. They want to carpool, but guess what? They legally can't because they can't ride together. We try not to, hold any transportation issues back. So my assistant's very good at going through bus lines with them, helping them get to work. So, that's just piggybacking off, her hiring that guy it makes me think of, the 50, 60 people that we've employed over the last year with backgrounds. So just keep all that in mind.
Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any questions for the panel? They were very thorough. Thank you, Becky. Thank you so much. I thank everybody for your patience with the PowerPoint issues and stuff like that. I do want to tell you that there's information back here on these counters here for some of the agencies here that work with returning citizens. We also have information back there about workforce development programs for employers. We have on-the-job training where if you hire someone who is a returning citizen, we will reimburse you 50% up to 75% of your small company for their wages for up to 6 months while they're in the onboarding and training phase. We have incumbent worker training. If you already have people employed with you that you need to skill up for a promotion or for a wage increase or anything like that to help your company, we have that program. We also have an apprenticeship, several apprenticeships. So Lee Reese can give you information about our apprenticeship training programs. We also we just have a lot of business programs for employers that are interested in hiring returning citizens. We depend on the individuals that actually work directly with people who are returning citizens, and we work off of their expertise as well. Lee, could you go over some of our apprenticeship programs and what's available?
So currently we have 17 apprenticeships with 16 employers. One is a food truck apprenticeship, first food truck apprenticeship in the country. A social kitchen over in Swansea. And he has a commissary building where he trains individuals with disabilities, returning citizens, veterans, etc. And then he has the food trucks themselves out on the yard. He does events. And he's up to 18 apprentices. Part of his business model is addressing food insecurities. So he has something called social currency. It's a little punker-looking chip that you can buy for $8 and give to an individual to call one of the food trucks or a food truck
and get a meal that's $15 of their choosing instead of somebody handing you a bucket with something in it. So there's some, some self-esteem, you're choosing something for yourself. Let's see. We have apprenticeships here with the city of Collinsville and Gateway Convention Center, City of Parks and Recreation, and Collinsville STEP program. So the STEP program is children with developmental disabilities. So we have 2 here for event setup, 2 for housekeeping, and 2 in landscape. Then we have quite a few apprentices with TerraSource Global, they're a manufacturing company that makes huge machines that make big things, little things. They're over in Belleville. We have some apprentices with Mac Medical, they make medical devices. We have apprentices with Westar Aviation and aircraft mechanics. We have apprentices with St. Elizabeth's, Gateway Regional Medical Center next week, Caseyville Rehab, and a bunch with Barnes Jewish. They're certified nursing assistant / patient care technicians, a 1-year apprenticeship, which we fund with related training instruction. But they're employees that were taken from really low level spots within the organization and moved up to CNA PCT. The first group will finish their first year next month. Our plans are to put them into a registered nurse apprenticeship. So we're creating career pathways with all the things we're trying to do. And we're all making a bunch of stuff out. We have a lot going on. And so we're shifting the service delivery model that's been used in workforce development for a long time. It's been somebody gets dislocated from a company. There's a rapid response ahead. We try to find a middle ground. When we find out they're laying off, we now engage in with employers that have open. And that's started to become a successful model. We're also working with the schools to assess individuals and shift our youth funding from out of school and school youth to partner with the schools to identify people that can receive rental services, partner with businesses prior to leaving school, start some job shadowing and moving them into a registered apprenticeship in which we deliver wraparound and supportive services. So we're just changing how we do business. Same thing with the reentry individuals. We're looking for those businesses that will give someone a chance that believes in the mission and is partnering with them. So, then we got Tool and Die. We have Conagra Food Manufacturing down in Centralia. No, we haven't even there yet. We are working on some. Good Life Grow, growing technician. So a lot of our apprenticeships that we have outside of healthcare and manufacturing are just different than what you're used to. And so give you an idea how successful we have been with our partners being an integral part of that is we just hit our 137th apprentice this week. And our demographics are 68% female. So if you know anything about apprenticeships, that's whack. I mean, if I don't say whack, that's whack. Because it's usually like 4% female. So we're finding the targets we're looking for. We have 10% with disabilities out here. And so we don't track returning citizens yet. That is something we do need to do to see where we're hitting the mark there. It's just something we haven't collected because it wasn't part of our grant deliverable. But we're more now about putting programs around people and putting people in programs. And so we really need to know what that data is so that we can see where we need to close the gaps. So it's probably going to make my career here. I'm happy to work with it. But I am actually in the process of talking to the state of Illinois about developing a gap analysis tool. So for us to be able to look at plugging our numbers in and seeing relative to we have plenty of labor force data where people are in our region. We know where they are and we know where the source is. But now we need to find out what we're missing and bridge the two. And so that's kind of what we're working on as a labor force committee in this area. We push it out you guys because pretty much everybody in here willing to work with develop that talent pipe. And what we have working for us in this area that they don't have in a lot of areas is that over the last 6 or 7 years, we've knocked down the silos. So it's like we're working with BJC and St. E's and I mean, when I talk to them now, like, would you sit down with another group of hospitals and share information and data? Yeah. We're good with that. Well, they wouldn't even do that 5, 6 years. But the labor force, societal impact, and a little bit of education has brought that about. So I think it's nothing but good things for LNG moving forward, especially working with the entry population. So we have a lot more opportunities we're going to have with that. All right. So if you guys are done, do you have any questions about what we're doing or how you can work with us? We got lots of money.
Oh, I like that.
We need to spend it. You guys work with the people, we need to spend it all. Food trucks are in Swansea at the corner of 159 and 161. So if you're familiar with Swansea, when you're coming if you were coming from 64, you went through Swansea, and there's a CVS on one side, a Jack in the Box on one side, there's a bank on the corner, and there used to be a loan place, and now something else. If you were to turn left, they're right at the bottom of the hill. And it's really neat because one of his food trucks is a DC-43 bomber for World War II with 3 missions that he has had redone to look like the space shuttle. And so it's like uber awesome. When I run my kids down there, it's like, yeah, that's great. Of course, I said that. Yeah, and the food is awesome.
Food is awesome.
So he has a burger of the week usually. He has a taco truck, burger truck, what all else? Barbecue, and then he just bought a building it's on the campus that he's turning into an ice cream shop that only individuals with developing a disability can work with. He also is fixing in a big portion of his space to do a dog park with like obstacles and stuff where people can take their dogs and eat lunch.
Social bar.
Social bar. And he's also putting in a disability able playground. So individuals in wheelchairs can access and so forth. So his name is John Michelle. He's a 1-star retired general. And he has, I think, a doctorate in social change. So he's a really interesting individual. We'll sit down and talk. He'll talk to our law. So if you mention one of us, it's all. So anyway, we're glad to have had you participate. Our next event will be April 5th, right back here, 90 minutes. It'll be supply chain and logistics roundtable. And then we'll be back here May the 12th for a healthcare roundtable. So we pretty much have 7 roundtables coming this year. There'll be education, construction, apprenticeship, manufacturing, healthcare, education, and one next on the logistics. So we're hoping that you guys have people that you can take this information back to the park with. Other than that, I'll close it out, and we can solve all those problems with just 3 things. Love, peace, and chicken.
Thanks again for our panel and our speakers.
Love.